I am so excited to share with you this beautiful human today. I was so fortunate to be able to interview her, and I'm really excited to share some of her story with you guys today. This is none other than the fabulous Hillary Grossman. Now, a little bit about her. Hillary is a single millennial boss babe, and her true passion in life is to show women that they are worth more, can do more, and be more. She has run a successful six-figure a month health and wellness business for over 2 years now and is prepping for rapid expansion as she and her team shift in their core values for 2020. Now, Hillary grew up in the 90s with her mom being the main breadwinner. At the time, this was still revolutionary in American society, but growing up with a strong female influence like that empowered her to feel like her being a woman was her superpower, and she uses that mindset on how she runs her day-to-day life and business. Hillary was a hot mess when she was trying to fit inside the box of the corporate world culture. She does admit that she developed super bad habits trying to keep up with the appearance of having her life together, which led her into a life of partying and going into social debt. One day, she met some kids having success building an online business, and she was inspired by their desire for more. The first 2 years when she was in direct sales, she did well, but her success really came when she transcended into community-based marketing and was able to develop an online community to grow her business. Being able to really own who she was and connect with other women on the same mission as her to better their life through community is really what changed the game. The biggest piece of advice Hillary will give you is to own who you are unapologetically and share that value relentlessly. Stop trying to do things because you think it works and show up as you and find a way to share that over and over and over. You only have one life, so why waste it being a version of someone else rather than the best version of yourself? Lead your life with love, and love will come right back to you. Can't wait to share this with you guys. Hi, guys. Welcome to Hot Mess and Blessed. I'm so excited that you're here for this amazing, incredible, stupendous podcast. For those of you who are watching this, you get to see my beautiful, beautiful friend Hillary. And for those of you who are listening in today, I am so glad you're here because you are in for such a treat. I have gotten to know this beautiful human over the past, I'd say 6 months, a lot better. We see each other every single week on Zoom, and it's been so incredible not only getting to know her fun personality, but also really bouncing ideas off of one another. So you heard her incredible intro just before this, and I'm really excited to be able to dive in with none other than Hillary Grossman. I'm so glad you're here, girl.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me today. When you asked me a couple of days ago, I got really excited because just like you talked about, we've been in this mastermind group for like 6 months now. And it's really, really, really like, it's meant so much to me to be able to have like high vibe, like women to collaborate with and to like all of us grow like our businesses together, even though we have nothing to benefit like from each other. That's been some of my favorite thing. So thank you so much for inviting me and having me here to like meet all your other podcast people. So
Yes,
I'm excited.
absolutely. And exactly like you just said, we don't make a dime off of one another. It's just really cool to be able to collaborate. So I'm super excited for people to get to know you because what I know is just incredible. I love your heart and I love your personality. And I'm excited for you to drop some knowledge on these people today. I was hoping you could just kind of share some of your backstory. I know a bit about you, but I would love to hear kind of how maybe you went from a life that was more of a hot mess and to where you've gotten today.
Yeah, no, I'd be really, really excited to share that. So I feel like I grew up a little bit differently than most people, and you guys will see this in my bio. So I grew up where like my mom was the sole breadwinner in the 90s. So that was like completely different. It was not something that I was used to. Like growing up, I was like literally the people would say like, oh, her parents, like they're the ones that don't show up. Like they're the ones that don't come to things and stuff. So I grew up in a very different way from what was the norm. And so being a kid at first, like that's all you want to do is be normal. You just want to be like everyone else. You want to like fit in, you want to be the like square peg, you're the square peg and you want to fit in the round hole or whatever it is, like that's really what you want. And so I feel like my hot mess journey really started is because I strived for that. So what I mean when I strive for that, I was a person, I got like a 4.0 in school. I was like the captain of clubs. I joined like a really good sorority. I had perfect internships. I got like that great corporate job downtown, and I was a hot mess. Like I was living a life where in this corporate culture, you are basically spending more money than you're making. You're literally going happy hour every day. I was going happy hour all the time. I was like just doing all these things that because I cared so much about fitting in and I cared so much about the perception of what other people thought of me. And so it wasn't really until like 4 years ago, I kind of got introduced to like the home-based business background through another person who was young. And it wasn't until I started being around like those type of people and those type of mind that I started really embracing that like I was different, embracing the things about me that were special or unusual, or started to want and think more. And so yeah, my hot mess like journey really is like when I've spent the time trying to be someone else that I wasn't, when I spent the time trying to fit in somewhere that I was never really supposed to fit in. I feel like that's what drove my hot messiness. And even this day in a business and life with friends, whenever I get myself into a place where I'm comparing myself to other people, or I'm trying, and this is a big thing, and we can talk about this a little bit later, when I'm trying to do the thing that works versus what like is really aligned with me, that's when like the mess is like, and you'd think like I would learn this lesson by now. It'd be like, hey, like when you stick to you, like when you're in alignment, when you're doing the thing, like your life rocks. And then when you try to be someone else, it doesn't. You'd think that I'd learn that, but it happens over and over and over again. So yeah, my hot mess really was when I was like living this life that wasn't really aligned with me, but I thought that's what society expected of me. And I thought that if I did that, then I'd be worthy of like the things that society told me that I needed, like a paying job to make this, like a relationship by this date type of thing, kids by this date, and living this like perfect corporate life, like nice car, nice house, like that's what I wanted and stuff. So yeah, that's my little hot messiness.
So having a parent that's been in this industry, you didn't initially have that, this is exactly what I want to do.
No. But also the thing is you have to understand. So as I said, I'm a 90s baby. So when I was watching my parent do this, like she was never home. There was never any time for family. Like she was literally on the road. She was in a different country. So my mom was in Asia from the time I was like 11 to maybe 17 or something like that. So to me, when I looked at it, I didn't see opportunity. All I saw was this was the thing that kept my mom away from my family. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm not going to be the person that gives up everything just to chase a business and stuff. And also for me too, like this is kind of actually a blessing with my parents too. So growing up, I literally had no idea how much money she was making, because like I still had a job in high school. My dad was very like in college, he was like, well, I'll help you with your rent. But he was like, if you want to drink, if you want to go out to eat, if you want to do any of those things, he's like, I'm not paying for that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And so like I was around other people like with not like upper white middle class thing, but I had no idea like the extra stuff that was going on, because that was not something that was brought like into our house. Mm-hmm. We weren't living like designer, blah, 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 like going on all these extravagant vacations and stuff all the time. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do, because that's what I saw. My perception was this vehicle took it away from a family life. And in my head, I was like, well, that's not what I want to do. And I still run my business that way. Like I definitely, in a thing, I think, especially having a business, is really understanding what your core values are. And so for me, one of my biggest core values are the people that are important to me. It's family. And so I'll never be a person that tells people on a team, hey, you need to like stop everything and work your business and ignore your family. That's never going to come out of my mouth. But if someone's using as their family as an excuse to procrastinate, that might be a conversation. But I really believe like the reason I we're in this industry is so we can provide more for our family, more for the people that are around us, more for ourselves. So yeah, I was like the opposite. I had no intention of doing it. And me, just like everybody else, I met someone who exemplified something that I thought I was missing. So at the time in my job, what happened when I was getting a hot mess, when I was living this like lifestyle, is I just felt purposeless. Like I was in the events industry downtown. My job was to basically solicit people to like use our spaces, like our office spaces. And that was like it. There was no more than that besides schmoozing people. So when I met these kids who were doing this and they had like a vision and they were talking about how they wanted to change the world and all this other stuff, that's what I hooked onto. That's like what excited me.
That's amazing. And so now that you're running this business, and I know you mainly run online, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your favorite aspects of running this business? And looking at that as well, like what are some things that you can definitely compare to how your mom had her business, but then also the big contrast between the two?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the things that I loved learning from my mom, and like one of the things I wrote and that I shared in the bio is that I grew up with a strong woman. So one of the things I think is really that I just innately have is work ethic. So like, I don't understand, like, I think some of the hardest thing in running a team is like me having to tell people what to do, because I grew up knowing that like, if you work, this is how success happens. Mm-hmm. So I think that from her business and her running it, like I've been very blessed that like, I'm not afraid of the hustle. I'm not necessarily, and obviously I've dealt with issues of rejection, just like every single person has, but I'm not afraid to put in the work, because in my head, I've seen the proof in the pudding, right? Like I know that if you do the work, like I knew now, and especially as I've grown up and became more aware and got a little bit away from my like upper white middle class background, it's like in my head, like I know we were able to go on vacations because of this industry. I know we were able to do things like that because of the work ethic and stuff she had. So I really like that aspect. I feel like I really learned like being in that environment. Like I really learned that. And so I think some ways that we different, it's not necessarily whatever. I just think that now, because of the online, it gives me more of an opportunity to have this harmony. So I was actually listening to this podcast yesterday. And so they said like to take out the word balance, because when you're doing work-life balance, you're comparing one thing to another and you're trying to make them equal the same, which doesn't really happen. But if you can harmonize stuff and you can integrate it. So like in my business, everyone on our team knows that like I work out every single day. That's important to me. Like they know when I say, hey, I'm going on a vacation, like unless it's emergency, like my doors are not open. I run our business really with like a schedule. So we have like scheduled times for meetings and things like that. So I feel like because online you can connect with so many people, you get that luxury to have that, versus before when it was just all offline. Like you had to go when someone was ready because you didn't know when you were going to get another phone call or not. Right. Versus us, like on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, podcasts, whatever, like you can work whenever you want to work. Like you can find another person to talk to. Like literally I always tell my team, like I can turn on my Facebook Messenger right now and I can see how many people are online. I can turn on my Instagram Messenger right now. And so I have that luxury to set up because of the online, the availability of people. So I feel like that's just generational, not necessarily like, oh, how she did it and how I did it. It's just like, that's why I like running an online business.
Right. It's all about the connections, and we really have it made with being able to build connections. I'm curious, what's one of your maybe top tips that you can give somebody on how to maybe build a strong connection, even though it is on the internet?
So I think this all comes back down to core values. And this is something that I feel like when I lead with my life and business in this way, this is when I find success. And when I do it the opposite way, this is when I fail. So I think a lot of times if you know who you are and you sit there, you're like, my core values are like, I care about people. And the core values is like the emotional feeling, right? But if you know what you stand for. So for me, like, I kind of know where I stand, like politically, I know like where I stand in terms of like the stuff I'm interested in. So I'm very active in like health and wellness. I'm very like into women's empowerment, entrepreneurship, things like that. I like to travel. So I think the thing is when you're making relationships online, focus on the people that you actually have connections with versus what works. And so I've made this mistake, like definitely because we're in the same company. I definitely have been the person that tried to pretend that I was living this type of health and wellness lifestyle when I wasn't. And so it worked. I made money, but it wasn't really genuine connections, and then it was diminishing returns each and over time. So I think that's the biggest thing that when telling people to do stuff online is really figure out what you stand for and work it. Don't pay attention to what works, because if it doesn't align with you, I promise you from my own experience, you will get bored of it. You will stop doing it, and you will see diminishing returns. And then you're going to go, oh, but look at that girl. She's getting all those leads. Well, if she's eating that way and she's promoting that type of like lifestyle or diet or whatever, of course she's going to get leads. That's like what she's doing versus when you're pretending. So in the last like 6 months, I feel like, especially with our mastermind, it's really given me the power to be like, hey, no, like I'm not into that. So for us on our team, we've made a big shift into the fitness space because that's what I'm into. I mean, cooking is great and all, but like I eat the same things every day. Like
We know you love your Whole Foods.
yeah, I love Whole Foods, but generally, if you ask me my diet, I eat like protein and vegetables and a smoothie every day. You can't do that many videos, like making the same. I mean, you can, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk more about body optimization, like getting to that next level. So I think once I gave myself permission to make that shift, that's when doors and things start open. And so that's the biggest thing that I give to ask people. Don't try to just do what works. Figure out how it works for you and then just stay consistent to that.
I love that. And you know, it's so powerful because people, like, if you're trying to fake it till you make it, that's great. But people can tell if you don't have the passion behind something, and they're going to be able to, you know, like you said, that long term just isn't going to be there. So I love that. So you talked a little bit about, you know, health and fitness. What other things like really inspire you? What do you do? Maybe what are some practices that you do daily, and what helps keep you inspired?
So again, we're coming back to health and fitness, but I always say, like, you need to get up, drink water, and move your body. Because if you create, I'm quoting Tony Robbins, but if you create motion, it's going to change your emotion. So I really have a big thing, like get up, make sure you move your body every single day. And then I think it's the same thing, like finding people that you align with. So for me, I'm spiritual. I like pray every single morning. I like to like sit there and feel really good gratitude. And then when I'm listening to people, I find people, and this is something that I've learned as I got older, you don't need to follow every single influencer on the planet. You need to find one that has a life that you actually would want and has things that you would actually want, and follow them. So for me, like I follow Rachel Hollis a lot. Like I'm obsessed with her. If you ask anyone knows, because she has what I want. She has a family. She has a rockin' business. She exercises. She has like a nice house. They go out to Hawaii a couple of times a year. I'm like, that's the life I want. So I'm going to follow what her influence is versus following some like, I don't know, like who the, like, you know, like the Jake Paul YouTube people that are always partying and stuff. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm sure that's great for them, but like, why am I going to waste my time following them when like I have no desire to do that?
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, very cool. So I know a lot of people tend to struggle with this. So I want to see what your take on this. I think we've talked about this in our mastermind before. Like, if you don't have your final destination in mind, you're never going to achieve that goal because the universe doesn't know where you're going. So how do you help gain clarity in your goals, in the things that you want? How do you go about doing that?
So, this is something that I definitely struggle with when I let myself get in that comparison game. So I think that that's something to remind people, understand. So if you're spending all this time comparing, you're not going to really be able to think of what you want or what it is that excites you. And so I think sometimes like I heard this quote, like you don't get what you want, but you always get what you really, 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 really want. And so I think that using some types of visualization and if something bothers you so much that you don't have that, then you know that that's something that you actually really want versus something that you think might be super temporary. So for a long time, like I thought that I really wanted to live like in Colorado because I went to school there and I love the mountains and I love the nature. But honestly, I hate the cold. Like, I hate the cold. And the idea of living there in the winter where it's freezing and rainy and annoying just kills me. And so when I was always stuck on this idea, I was like not moving towards it because there was something always whatever, versus when I admitted, hey, actually, I'd really like to be able to live a life where I could live there in the summers. I could see people in the summers, and then I could go back to a warmer place. And so for me now this summer, assuming the world with the coronavirus is fine, like I'm planning on living there for like 3 weeks and stuff. So it's like I'm getting something I really, really want because that's what I do really want. I want to be there in the summers because I like to hike. I like to do those outdoor activities. So by sitting there and being like, this is exactly what I want, then that really helps. And I think that a lot of times, a lot of us just don't know. And so I think it's like taking the time and giving yourself permission, but it's also when it comes back to being authentic, you have to understand that what other people want and say, that might not be the thing for you, and that's okay. But you can watch the successful people on how they do things and see, hey, how can I use that work ethic or that method to achieve the thing that I actually want? So that's something I think just helps. And I think, writing stuff down, because there, it's like, what's that phrase? It's like, if you don't write it down, the idea is just a wish. Yeah. So write it down. And if you write it down and you're like, this just doesn't feel right, maybe that means that's not really that important to you, you know?
Absolutely. I love that you started that off by saying, give yourself permission, because I think that's what a lot of us tend to wait for. A lot of us think, oh my gosh, like for me personally, there was nobody in my family who had ever started their own business and was actually successful with it. You hear about people that start their own franchise and a year later that's shut down. And I didn't personally know somebody who was successful in that manner. And finally it took, seeing somebody on the internet, and I said, wow, okay, if she could do it, I could do it. And I didn't have that level of belief yet, but I borrowed that from her and I said, okay, like, let's go, let's figure out a way to make this happen. So I love that you said, give yourself the permission first, because it does all start with that step. And it's scary no matter, if you've had people that were successful in your life or you didn't. And then the fact that you said, write it down. And I just did a podcast with someone earlier, and he actually said the same thing. And he literally said, some of the stuff that's going to come out, you may cross it off later, literally the exact same thing. So I think that's really powerful. I would love to know, now we've talked about like what inspires you and what can help with that, but now that we've had this mastermind experience, I'd love to chat a little bit about that with you, just because I know I have my take on it, but I would love to know what your take has kind of been, because this was your first mastermind as well, right?
Well, so I've done another one. So I did another one because, so when I got started in this business, like, yes, like I had influence of seeing successful, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do on mine. Mm-hmm. So I had been in a mastermind a couple years before to basically be like learning everything online, but I was not actually at the level of the people that were there. It was like before they changed the platform. And so the second year I was in it, I hit the money requirement, but the first year, like I probably shouldn't have been there. But this has been like the truest mastermind, because that honestly just felt like college. It felt like, oh, this is how you go to college to work on an online business, versus this has been more of the first like collaborative environment type of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's chat about it.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, personally, do you feel like, I know in Napoleon Hill's book, he talks about like the power of collaboration. Do you feel that as well from our group?
Yeah. So there's one thing that I really want to touch on, and why I think this mastermind is so important, and the fact that we all actually want other people to win and we're not actually benefiting off each other. So this was actually something that happened to me in my corporate career. So I remember, I also think people understanding and starting a business, and I want to talk about this for a second, because you said you had to borrow someone else's belief. And so this is what I encourage new people to do. When you're starting something new, you need to create like a belief list so you can prove to yourself all the things that you've already accomplished. So like if you're a mom and you have 2 kids that are alive, hey, that's like a pretty big deal. You need to like write that down. Like, hey, you can keep 2 humans functioning and stuff. Like if you are a person that can maybe you've organized an event or something for your church or something. That's a thing to write down. So the more that you can put those beliefs like, oh, I can do this, oh, I can do this, the more you could actually believe in yourself to run an online business if you don't know what you're doing. So I think that belief thing coming in, but the reason I love our mastermind so much is because when I was in the corporate world, literally I felt like the other women who were above me hated me. I would always feel like they hated me. I'd always be like, why are they so mean to me? Like, I'm just trying to learn like what they're doing. And literally, because in the corporate world, when I came in, there was this idea that there was only room for one woman at the table. So yeah, these women were supposed to be my mentors, but they were threatened because I was younger, and society also tells women like you need to be young and thin and whatever. So I was younger, thinner, and like newer or whatever, which was basically what society tells women they need to be, like a new shiny car or whatever. And so in that, there was never anyone for me to learn from in that corporate environment, because literally every female mentor I had, literally they've all hated me. They liked me to a degree, and that was it. And so what I really like about our mastermind is that it shows me and it reinforces the belief that there's many seats at the table for women. There's many seats at the table for strong, successful women. And so I think I like that, but I also like it because there's just something about, especially in our industry, a lot of times you're either helping people who are like really just not at your level yet, and that's fine, but you're giving so much energy. And then maybe you're under somebody, and so you're receiving energy, but it's not the same type of energy as when you're collaborating with each other. And so I just really love it because it shows that like collaboration is key. And I feel like more people in general, like if we lived in a society where we all collaborated more versus living in this like lack mindset, if like they succeed, then you won't. Or if I'm here, then you won't. And so I feel like that's been super good to just enforce the belief like, hey, we can all win. We can all like win and live our best lives, whatever that may look like. So I love it.
I love that. And you're so right, because like you said, in corporate, it's a lot of, oh, this person's winning. Like, you can't clap when they walk by, but it truly is, we are there and we have totally different personality types. We have our very analyticals, and then we have our very like, kind of, feminine energy. And then I know you and we know the hustle thing. And I love that it's just so varied, but then we still have that power together. And it's so cool because one of us will literally pop an idea. We've got a group text that's always going, and it's like, oh, we're doing this. Like, what do you guys think of this? And just bouncing those ideas off of one another. And like, you literally came up with something, telling me to put this on YouTube after. This will be up on YouTube after. So I mean, it's just really remarkable to be able to have that. I wrote down that belief list thing. I think that is amazing. I do have a question for you though.
Yeah.
Because I know there's some people who have maybe not had support, who maybe have been beaten down a lot in life, who maybe have been told they're not good enough, or maybe that's just like an automatic assumption that they've made because they're trying to, they've always been trying to do the things and it's never been working. What would you tell the person who maybe says, I can't think of anything that I can believe I've done that's been good for myself or my family or whatever?
I think then for those people, I would try to make it as simple as possible. So I think sometimes, especially when people are feeling intimidated or feeling like they're in a room where people are far better or more experienced there, it's really easy to diminish like the things that you have done. And I definitely like, I feel like I like to feel like a high achiever. So when I'm around people who are like, for us, like we make like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But when I'm around millionaires, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. And that's like my negative spiral or whatever. So I think in the same thing for for people that are around it, it's like, let's just go to something really simple. Like, were you able to, like, I don't know, were you able to make someone feel good today? Like, okay, let's write this down. Were you able to like have a really good interaction today? Okay, let's write this down. Let's take it down to like the simplest common thing, because everyone's done something. But then I also think then if that's the type of person, then saying, hey, like, I think maybe you should get like onto some personal development, and let's make this a habit to where your habit every day is telling yourself something good about yourself. Because what's the stat? It always changes, so I don't actually know what it is. It's like one compliment is like, if you say a negative thing, it's like 10 times worth as like one compliment.
Yep.
Like, actively do those things. So that would be my first step for that person, to really get them to start just putting stuff down that they believe in, putting stuff down that they like need. And so I guess that's just like that would be the first thing. And so, and then grow from there. And I think that's also the understanding. And I think as we climb up, like really sharing like, hey, I wasn't actually always like this. Like, and I think that's actually one of the things I think is so hard on people because of social media. So for example, like, I know on our product, you've lost like a lot of weight. So a lot of times I feel like if someone sees that, it takes them 3 minutes to read. So in their brain, they're thinking, wow, Melissa did this in 3 minutes. And when they don't do it in 3 minutes, they're like upset, but it's not really like that. So when you're hearing someone's success story, however long it tells you to tell their story, realize that's years. That's not the 2 minutes that you just became exposed to it.
Oh, gosh, that's so good. And to think about the fact that we all start down here, and it's just those compounding effects each and every day that you're taking. And I think personal development, like you said, is a great stepping stone. Do you have any like books that you love that are really powerful for maybe helping build that belief in yourself that you can think of?
So the first book I ever read when I got into this journey, and I love it. Also, he goes to my gym and knows who I am, so this makes me feel like I know a celebrity.
Oh, okay.
It's called Before Happiness by Sean Aker.
Okay.
And so that's actually not the book that made him famous. It's this book called The Happiness Advantage, but that's very scientific, and it goes into like the neurochemicals of your brain and why people are happy. But in the first one, he goes over and he talks about, because in our society, we are conditioned to think, once I get X, then I get to be happy. Mm-hmm. And he really talks about, hey, no, first you got to be happy, and then you're going to start to experience all these things. And I like that book too, because it's written very middle ground. So it's not going too woo-woo for people over here. And it's not going too scientific on the other side. It's like written very like, hey, everyone can understand this. So that's the first book I read. So I recommend people like, hey, like, go read this one, because it's Before Happiness. So yeah, that's one I recommend.
Awesome. I definitely have that written down. Cool.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I could probably sit here with you all day. But do you have any other things that you want to mention about the mastermind? Like, do you feel anyone in business should have a mastermind?
I think once you get to a certain level, yeah. So I think that if you're truly wanting to have a business, and I think that's the thing to ask yourself, like, do I really want a business, or am I just in this for like, just a side hobby or something like that? But if you really are truly wanting a business to where you are making like a profit from the decisions stuff you're making, then yeah, I think that like you should have a mastermind to where you collaborate and you learn and you participate. The mastermind culture right now, I think, is kind of weird. So, I mean, I definitely think do your homework and stuff also. So I definitely think now, like a lot of masterminds where you pay like a ton, I don't really know necessarily what the return, like I loved the one I did, but there was a sole purpose for what I got from it. Like, it's like I went to college basically. So I do think that people should, but I think that before you join one, asking yourself, hey, like, am I a person that does this stuff every day so that I can actually bring value? Versus like, I think sometimes people might want to get into one just like, hang out and things like that, which I love. Like, don't get me wrong, like our hangouts are amazing, but I think saying, hey, am I in a space to bring value and receive open and honest feedback? And if I am, then yeah. And I also really like the size of ours. I really like that it's small. I definitely think that we can give every member like real attention and real help. So I think keeping that circle small. But I also just think collaborating with people in general is just so effective, even if it's not in a business, even if like so for me at our gym, part of the reason I'm sad during this coronavirus is I have people who like I work out with that, yeah, we're not really like talking about our workout performances together, but like those are people that I communicate with, and by showing up because they're going to show up, I'm going to do better. So I think just any time in life that you can have the mindset, the more that I show up for people and give, the more I'm going to receive and the more I'm going to like give again. That's always a win. So
I got chills from that. Oh my gosh, girl. Amen. Let's keep having that servant's heart, that servant's mindset. I love that. I love that. I love that. So the last thing that I want to ask you is, what would be a tip that you'd have if somebody thinks that their life is full on hot mess instead of blessed? What would be a tip to help them kind of get to that next level that they want to?
So okay, I'm gonna have to think about this because I'm gonna have to think because I could talk about like 2 weeks ago in my head, I thought I was like a hot mess. So I think then the biggest tip I think is you have the power to decide if this mess is permanent or temporary. So you have the power to decide if this mess is permanent or temporary just by the story that you tell yourself.
Wow. I love that.
So like you have that power, and you could be the one to change that story at any time. And when you change the story and the narrative, that it grows and grows and grows from there. So that's what that's the first thing that I would tell people is like rewrite your own story. Like just change your narrative.
That is so good. Oh my gosh. She's like, I'm going to have to think about it, and then pulls magic out of the air. I love that. Oh my gosh. All right, Hillary. This was amazing. Seriously, thank you so much for this. I would love for you to share where people can find you. So I don't know if you're big on Instagram or where can we find you?
I think the biggest thing right now to get me the fastest is to find my personal Instagram, which is just my name, Hillary Grossman. I have a business one, but get me on my personal one. And then if you're on Facebook, then just the same thing, follow and add me, Hillary Grossman, on Facebook. That's the quickest way for me to get back to you and to connect with you. And so you can follow along. I'm really big on stories on both of those platforms. So if you want to see what I'm actually doing every single day, and I don't really filter them that well, you can follow along and see what I'm doing. So
a day in the life. I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to talk to you. We talk every single Monday, so it's always a great, marvelous Monday when we chat. I love you, girl.
They get a chat really